Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
As we are entering the final preseason week, Game 3 coming up this weekend. And boy, now it's kind of like, hey now, how many healthy dudes are we going to have for this third and final preseason game? How many? Because yesterday on Saturday's game, had some dudes leaving the game and don't know when they're going to be back. Probably most notably Marshawn Lloyd. You just feel bad for this guy now. I mean, Ben Simmons, his position coach, was even asked about it. They did some coordinators and position coach media sessions. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. And from our good friend Rob Domofsky, said that he tweeted this out. Packers running backs coach Ben Simmons, when asked whether he's ever seen anyone have the kind of bad injury luck Marshawn Lloyd has had, he said, "I have not. I don't think any of us, or very few of us, have. The way he works, you got to believe he'll get past this." But another hamstring issue for Marshawn Lloyd. Look, the thing is like when he played in that game Saturday, you saw some of the things that he's able to do when he's out on the field. You could get a glimpse, even like during practice. There was reporters saying he was like making people's jaws drop with his elusiveness and his talent. And you saw a little bit of that in the game Saturday if you were watching it. But for crying out loud, the guy just can't stay healthy, and you feel bad for him. And I don't know if they can figure this out. I mean, how many times have we talked with Dr. Crow, the guy who is a professional in all this? So I don't want to say injury prone or bad training staff or anything like that. We've talked to the professionals who do this for a living. And sometimes it's just bad luck. And you look at Marshawn Lloyd with this, and you just feel bad for this second-year guy. But it opens the door for other guys now on this team, whether it's Amar Johnson, Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks, because it sure seems like now Marshawn Lloyd's probably, if I were to wager a guess, is going to open up the season on the injured reserve and miss the first 4 games. If Marshawn Lloyd was healthy, there's probably only one spot left in that running back department, but it opened up jobs. And he wasn't the only injury. Omar Brown, who had the fantastic family night, suffered a scary injury. He actually had to stay at the hospital 2 nights. 2 nights. Dealing with what was initially called a chest contusion, but having an issue with his lungs. So, I mean, that's a scary, scary, scary situation. Pretty significant injury. So, and then Baron Sorrell, suffering a knee injury, another rookie. He had been showing some flashes in camp. Don't know how serious it is, but LaFleur saying he'll be missing some time. So, does that mean he potentially could start the season on the injured reserve as well? Does that open up a job on that defensive line that we know is a position group that this team is counting on a lot for improved play from last year? Well, one of those guys that maybe they were counting on to help improve that line might be missing the first part of the season. I guess on one hand, some positive stuff. Jordan Love might even return to practice as soon as today. If you were watching a little bit of that game on Saturday, maybe you saw some glimpses of him throwing some passes on the field. Transition from having a cast on his hand to just a brace on that non-throwing hand, but there is potential that he could practice this week. Matt LaFleur saying we're going to alter some things to allow him to get involved, do my favorite 7-on-7 that I absolutely despise, but in some instances it's good, so I'd rather have him do that than just throw on air, so we'll incorporate some 7-on-7 into practice. But you even look at the wide receivers, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Matt LaFleur saying he sure hopes so, that they'll be ready week 1. Savion Williams is also dealing with an injury. Romeo Doubs had a back injury. but LaFleur at least saying no long-term issue there. This is a banged-up team right now when you factor in Xavier McKinney in here too and Nate Hobbs earlier. Man. Maybe for this final preseason game against Seattle, just not play anybody. Or just play a full game of, sorry to say it, but bottom roster guys. Bottom of the end roster, depth chart guys at this point. So injuries, obviously a big concern, but, and again, y'all know me. If you've been listening for a long time, I'm not one to, I think I usually keep a level head. I don't tend to overreact to a lot of things. I don't tend to get all animated, instant reaction, hot take sort of thing. But I think we got to be looking at what the heck is going on with all the laundry on the field. And I'm talking about the flags. The flags, the amount of flags that this team has been getting thrown on them in the first 2 preseason games. It was another week, first week, okay, first preseason game, maybe you could kind of say, meh. But then in the first half of that Colts game, Anthony Belton, I have to forget for the rookie second-round pick. 5 first-half penalties alone from him. 5, including back-to-back illegal formation. Packers had 11 penalties for 85 yards in the first half. Second half, they only committed 1 penalty. All right, cool. They erased a 13-0 deficit and had the comeback win. Anthony Belton did not draw another flag. Actually played very well in the second half. But we still can't ignore what happened in the first half, right? We can't ignore that. And it was a little bit of everything from Anthony Belton. The illegal formations, the false starts, unnecessary roughness, and a face mask. It was a little bit of everything from Anthony Belton. Heading into the locker room at halftime, if you were watching it, you saw Matt LaFleur tearing into his rookie. Rightfully so. But they got it. And I know the officials apparently, in every preseason, officials come to teams' training camps and such. Work with the team. They've got officials there, but we're talking NFL officials. NFL officials always go visit teams and such, and the NFL officials are visiting Green Bay this week, part of their joint practices with Seattle. Now, Matt LaFleur said it's later than usual, later than he would like. I don't know if that's the excuse. I kind of don't buy it as the excuse. You kind of look at a lot of these infractions and these penalties, and you look at it, they're coming from the younger guys. Maybe there's a little bit of that. But at the same point in time, how do you have back-to-back illegal formation penalties where you're lining up? It's from the offensive linemen and where they're lining up. How do you have that? How does that happen? You know what I mean? That's unacceptable. And again, it was another game where positive plays, were being negated, taken away because of stupid, unnecessary mental penalties. Ridiculous. And unacceptable. And it falls straight on, yes, it's the players, but then you got to look at coaching. What's going on? You got to do a better job preparing these guys, preparing and teaching these guys. Ultimately, a coach can't go out there and hold the player's hand on the field and guide him and tell him, okay, got to line up this way. It's not like when I'm coaching my third graders in flag football where I could be on the field with them and line them up correctly. Can't do that, obviously. And it's up to the players to be accountable for themselves. But when it's something like this, you gotta look at, Luke Butkus, the offensive line coach, and Adam Stenovich, the offensive coordinator, and Matt LaFleur, and be like, okay, why are these guys getting it? got to clean this thing up, because if this goes into the regular season, for crying out loud, that is unacceptable. That's ridiculous. But heading into the final week, final preseason of this Packers season, it's a big Game 3 coming up. And now with some of these injuries, jobs are a little bit more open. Who do you think is trending in a direction now? How do I want to phrase this? Because there were some solid performances from Game 2. I don't want to paint a picture of like it was all bad. But I think there was a couple of players here that had themselves a decent week or a couple days in Indy in that game. Then it's really setting up, I think, for some interesting decisions. So just in case anybody was wondering, if you follow along with Pro Football Focus grades after games, I've used this phrase quite a bit, but I think it's a tool that's in the toolbox. It's not the tool. It's not the tell-all, be-all stat, statistic, analytic number, grade, or anything like that. I think it's part of the tool in the toolbox. Combine it all in there. So if you're kind of curious of what Pro Football Focus ranked some of the Packer players in their preseason game against the Colts, top offensive player was tight end Johnny Lumpkin, then Ben Sims, then Smith, the offensive lineman, Jordan Morgan, then Amar Johnson, the running back. Top 5 defense was Carl Brooks, Oladapo, Hopper, Robinson, and linebacker Johnson. Bottom 5 offense, Anthony Belton, we were just talking about, Marshawn Lloyd, Elgersma, quarterback, Taylor the Canadian football transfer, you know what I'm talking about. Emmanuel Wilson, then Nair, the wide receiver. Bottom 5 defense, Isaiah Simmons, Omar Brown, James Esther, Alexander, and Kamal Hayden. So we are entering a pivotal week for some of these guys who are on a roster bubble. We are entering a pivotal week for guys who are trying to maybe win a starting job. And this upcoming preseason game, we know it could decide futures for a lot of these players. This final week could decide futures for a lot of these players. And so I want to highlight a few players who I think are really making some interesting cases in terms of maybe winning a starting job, winning a job, and then some players who are really kind of trending downward big time. And they're kind of like, territory. Let's start off with some of the positives. Jordan Morgan is making this left tackle battle kind of interesting here. He put together another solid game, and he has clearly been taking advantage of Walker being out of the lineup. Morgan, again, didn't allow a single pressure over 15 pass blocking snaps. In fact, Pro Football Focus nearly graded him and gave him an elite pass blocking grade. So Jordan Morgan has definitely been taking advantage of Walker not being in that lineup, and has really kind of, I think, this is a tough decision now for Green Bay, because if you go at the beginning of training camp, Brian Gutekunst, did acknowledge it was going to be a job, but kind of said it's going to be really hard maybe for Morgan to win the job over Walker because of the experience that Walker has had, starting experience. Well, Walker's been out, and Morgan has stepped in, and Morgan has played fantastic. And now the question's going to be, assuming Walker's going to be ready for week 1, what do the Packers do? You hear Matt LaFleur and them always say the 5 best will play. But here's the decision at hand here. Do you put Morgan in there, and then essentially it'd be Morgan, Banks, Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. That's your starting 5. And then Walker's probably your swing tackle, and instantly becomes a very, 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 very good backup tackle or swing tackle. Because chances are you're probably going to have an injury at some point, right? I mean, got to play the odds there. So at least you'd be covered there. Or do they still have Walker as a starter? Morgan is essentially your top backup, and Morgan has experience playing interior at a guard position and at tackle. So you're covered there. Because we know Walker's not going to get any, he's not going to be put in as a guard. And then on the other hand, though, too, is like, let's say if there is an injury to a guard, you could slide Morgan in there, and then Walker comes over and plays the left tackle. That's a decision now Green Bay is going to have to come up with. Essentially, who are your 5 best offensive linemen? And if Morgan right now has taken over, or he has jumped into that top 5, is he best suited at left tackle? Is he best suited at guard if Walker's ready to go? But you got to give him a ton of credit. This is what you want to see from this guy. Yes, he's a first-round pick. This is probably what a lot of people expected. But you want to see these guys with a chance, with an opportunity to make a case for a starting job. Jordan Morgan has done exactly that. He has done that. So you got to give him credit. It's going to be interesting to see how this week plays out. And once they kind of set their rosters, we may not even know yet for a couple weeks here. Because even though it's the final preseason game coming up this week, this Saturday, we may not know till closer to game time, week 1 against the Lions, who that starting offensive line is going to be. I think, too, you look at the running back position now. With Marshawn Lloyd, let's assume he's going to miss some time, like Matt LaFleur said. Let's assume that he's going to start the season in injured reserve and miss the first few games of the season. One, that sucks. Okay? It sucks. It stinks. Because when he has been out there and when he has flashed some of his abilities, he's looked pretty darn good. Right? He has looked pretty darn good. And it just, you hate to see it from a player, but you also hate to see it from a talent perspective, because now it's like, okay, you lose your top backup running back. So now it opens up a job for somebody else. Initially, it looked like it was Jacobs, Lloyd, and then it was going to be a battle for that third spot. Was it going to be Emmanuel Wilson? Was it going to be Chris Brooks? Was it going to be somebody else? Well, that somebody else now might be Amar Johnson. Running back Amar Johnson. He had some tough runs in that game against the Colts. It was a solid showing for the youngster. And now I think he has put himself probably between Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks, is probably between those 3. I'm going to say between those 3 for those 2 spots in that running back department. Emmanuel Wilson, they know what they've got. A little bit. He'd had that big catch in the game against the Colts, but he also had a fumble. They like Chris Brooks a lot because of the versatility he brings. They're familiar with those 2. Maybe that plays to their advantage of making the roster, and maybe a guy like Amar Johnson sticks around on the practice squad. It could be something as simple as that. But his stock is up. Amar Johnson's is. His stock is pointing upward. But you look at that running back depth chart now with no Marshawn Lloyd, it might be very similar to last year now. With Josh Jacobs, going to be your bell cow, and then Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson sprinkled in here or there. But I think this is going to be a big week and potentially a big game on Saturday against Seattle for a guy like Johnson. I want to talk about a couple of defensive players now who are, I think, they're really showing something in these first couple weeks of preseason and training camp, and just kind of, I think their stock is gone up here a little bit. I'm going to go with Hopper, the second-year linebacker. Tyron Hopper, second-year linebacker, third-round pick from last year. He has put together a couple of back-to-back preseason games now where he has flashed. And I believe 2 weeks in a row now, again, if we use the Pro Football Focus grades, top 5 grades back-to-back weeks. And if you go back to last year, we didn't see him a ton. We saw him a little bit on special teams, but not really on defense, right? We didn't see him a lot. But yeah, I just double-checked it. He had the second best defensive grade in week 1 against the Jets and 4th now in this Colts one. But he has flashed both in run support and in the passing game. He has flashed that speed. He has flashed his ability to diagnose running plays and stopping the run. Kind of, when you look at the linebacker depth chart, it's McDuffie, it's Walker, it's Cooper, and then even Isaiah Simmons, who I'm going to get to here in just a minute. And then it was Hopper. It's like, okay, he's probably going to be the odd man out, maybe cut gone. Because then you got Welch. Welch, who I think they really like. He's kind of their special teams guy, though. So it kind of felt like maybe Hopper was going to be, released. 3rd round pick last year, going to be cut this year. Pump the brakes on that. Because he has put together 2 games now, back-to-back, looked good, looked solid, looked comfortable out there playing. And I think he has put himself in a position to win a job right now. Carl Brooks had a good game against the Colts this past week. And again, when we talk about Sorrell, the rookie defensive lineman who's going to be missing some time, according to Matt LaFleur, because of a knee injury, we look at that defensive line group. We know the starters. After that, it's up in the air in terms of depth. Who's going to make the squad and such? Sorrell was probably going to be a lock on there because of his pick. Stackhouse, I think, is going to be a lock on there as an undrafted rookie free agent. So you're talking about 6 there. You got a Kobe Wooden. You got a Carl Brooks you throw in there. Brinson, another rookie. Carl Brooks, with his performance and so far what we've seen, I think he has earned himself probably a spot on this team right now too. And especially when you factor in Baron Sorrell's injury, I guess I don't want to say lock right now, but I would say he's pretty comfortable. Pretty comfortable. Another player, defensive player that I want to say that I think has put together a couple of solid games back to back is Oladapo, the safety, second-year safety. He's been getting a ton of playing time in this preseason. Zane Anderson injury, I think, again, we'll see how long he's going to be out and such. But Oladapo, when you look at that safety department, it's Xavier McKinney, it's Evan Williams. Javon Bullard's the nickel, the slot guy, but also a backup safety. They like Zane Anderson a lot. But Oladapo, I think, is playing himself right now in a position where he can win a job. He can win a spot on this team, especially, too, with Omar Brown's injury. Omar Brown came into the preseason after that family night. Stock was cruising high, sky high, red hot. Oladapo, didn't hear a whole lot from him. With Zane Anderson's injury, now with Omar Brown's injury, Oladapo has put himself in a position that I think he could potentially get a job now on this team. And he's played well. It's not just by default. Well, we're laying out a couple guys, so yeah, he's going to make it. He's played well. And in this game against the Colts, he broke up a pass, didn't have a missed tackle, didn't give up a catch over 39 snaps. Playing well in the back end. And he's a little bit of a bigger safety, too, that you could play in the box. Help out and run support. That's when he was drafted last year. He was more of that box safety. But the fact that he's proven or shown some improvement in the pass defense, that's going to bode well for him as well. Now, some players who I think that they came into preseason, they came into training camp with some intrigue, with some, maybe some positive PR, if you will, or, I don't want to, maybe PR isn't the right way to say it, but, kind of came in like, oh, this could be a sneaky good pick. Isaiah Simmons' stock has just plummeted. And I'm one of those that I was intrigued with the former first-round pick coming in. They were saying the right things. Hey, you're going to focus strictly on linebacker, man. We're not going to have you do what like the Cardinals and the Giants tried to do, where you're going to be linebacker, safety hybrid. You're going to focus straight on the linebacker. It's like, all right, cool. It hasn't been working out right now. You look at his game, his 2 preseason games, and boy, it hasn't been good. It hasn't been good. You look at his game against the Jets, and he just looked a little bit out of place at times. Missed a couple tackles. I mean, he's got this athleticism. He's kind of like a Hopper. He's got the athleticism. He's got the speed. Body size between those two are very similar. You know, Hopper was a little light for a linebacker too. Very similar. But it's Hopper that's outplaying him right now, for crying out loud. But you go to, first off, that Jets game, Simmons was not great in coverage. Not great in coverage. Missed a couple tackles. In fact, in that Jets game, he was charged with giving up 5 catches for 76 yards. Now, go back to the Colts game where Simmons. Now, if you want to use the Pro Football Focus grades, Simmons had the second worst defensive grade in the Jets game. Simmons has had the worst defensive grade from the Colts game. Missed another tackle and gave up 5 catches for 52 yards. Combine that math between these 2 preseason games. Simmons, 7 catches. Giving up 7 catches. Is it 7 catches? I feel like it should be more than that. Let me go. So, 5. Oh, no, excuse me. Yeah, 5 catches for 76 yards in his first game. And then 5 catches, so 10 catches, 52 yards in coverage against the Colts, and 76 yards against the Jets. You're talking over 120 yards receiving he's given up. He is not, right now, if they were making a 53-man roster, Isaiah Simmons doesn't make it. How I don't know how you can give him a spot over a guy like Hopper. You look at those 2 guys. Hopper has outplayed Isaiah Simmons. I get it. The intrigue of adding a former first-round pick is there. Still young in his career. The athleticism is there. But right now, you're making your 53-man. Hopper's outplayed him. And you keep Hopper over Simmons. You cannot have Simmons out on that field and being essentially a liability in pass defense because he's given up so much and he's been missing tackles. Hopper has been doing the exact opposite of that. Maybe Isaiah Simmons fits more on a special or on a practice squad. I would have no problem with him being back on the team in terms of a practice squad role. But right now, his stock's plummeting. And given what we have seen the first 2 preseason games, I don't think he can do anything on Saturday that would win him a job. I really don't. Because I don't think you could ignore what has happened the first 2 games and just say, oh, he had a great third game. Yep, let's give it him over Tyron Hopper. I don't. Unless there's an injury. Knock on wood, that there's no more injuries in this thing. But Isaiah Simmons has probably been one of the most, if not the most, disappointing player so far that we have seen in training camp.